Some of you may know that one of my favorite hobbies is jet skiing. I love it. Now, technically not jet skiing. You know, a jet ski is kind of a smaller machine that you stand up on, takes a lot of skill and athleticism. Those were invented first. But then came wave runners. These machines have seats on them, and they're made by companies like Sea-Doo and Yamaha and Polaris. And you can sit down and ride, or if you're riding really aggressively or fast or jumping wakes, you'd kind of still stand up on it. But so much fun. I love it. I do it anytime that I can. It's one of my favorite things. It's exhilarating. It's fun. It's thrilling. It's really, really cool. If you haven't done it, you should try it. But this story is about a time early on when I was learning how to ride, and I lost my brother's $10,000 Sea-Doo XP jet ski. You might be asking, how do you lose a jet ski? Right? That's a fair question because it's hard to do. You say, oh, was it stolen? No, I lost it, which is ridiculous. So here's what happened. My brother, Phil, I have 4 brothers. My brother, Phil, is the one that I'm closest to. He was best man in my wedding. I was the best man in his wedding. He's an awesome guy. He's hilarious. If you ever get a chance to meet Phil, he's a really cool guy. But he and my dad had both bought a couple of these Sea-Doo XP wave runners, right? Like, top of the line at the time, best you could get. Not the big 3-seaters that you could, like pull like a water skier behind. These are smaller. They're made for speed maneuverability. The Sea-Doo XP. Awesome. And so they had invited me to come up riding in Michigan. I live in Southern Ohio. Not a lot of lakes and, bodies of water around here. But up in Michigan, lots of places to ride. So I went up there, but my dad's Sea-Doo was actually in the shop. So they only had one that was running and operational. And Phil said, hey, that's cool. We can just go out and we'll take turns riding. Well, that's cool. Well, that's cool. That sounds fun. So out we go. We head out east to Lake St. Clair. And there's an area called Anchor Bay that we put the boats in the water. And so go down on the boat ramp. My brother says, hey, I'll ride first for a little bit, make sure everything's working on the machine, and then you can ride for as long as you want. Cool. So I'm sitting on the shore and I'm reading a book, and he goes out and rides for about 20 or 30 minutes. And he comes back and he says, hey, it's your turn. Great. I said, how long do you want me to ride? He said, long as you want. I'm really here for you today. I can ride anytime I want. You're in from out of town. Have at it. Awesome. So I go out there. I'm, racing around and having a blast. But you know what I learned? It's kind of boring jet skiing by yourself, right? There's nobody to race. There's nobody to like splash, with your jet spray. You just kind of going around. So I'm like, well, as long as I'm out here, I should probably practice, right? Some moves. So I'm going to practice some high-speed turns. What's great about jet skis is, you can turn them kind of on a dime. You got to shift your weight when you're doing that. And they can turn pretty awesome. And what's really great about jet skis compared to like riding a motorcycle or an ATV is that if you fall off, you just get wet. You're probably not going to get injured. Although I did knock myself out once and almost died. That's a story for another video. But on this particular day, I'm just practicing some high-speed turns and I'm turning the thing. Yeah, it's pretty good. And I'd go the other way. I'd turn it. And I was going faster and faster and trying to turn sharper and sharper. Well, eventually I hit, a little wave just right or just wrong. And I was going pretty fast, tried to turn too sharp. I went flying. The jet ski went that way. I went that way. Splash in the water. Now, fortunately, if you've never rid one of these wave runners have a lanyard that's attached to your flotation device, and you plug it in, and that has to be plugged in for the engine to start. And if you fall off, it yanks it off and it cuts the engine, or else the jet ski would just ride forever. And so it cuts the engine. It just floats there nearby. You climb back on. You're fine. Now, something else I got to tell you about this particular day is I was wearing all of my dad's gear, right? My dad had all of this awesome gear. Him and my brother, they had these high-speed flotation devices that basically a life vest, but instead of buckling, in the front like the ones that, you had when you went canoeing, these ones you strap down on the sides, and the front is designed for a high-speed collision. If you hit the steering column, that you're going to be okay. And I'm wearing these awesome waterproof gloves that are used for, gripping because, you use your thumb to try to accelerate the thing. Some boots, these waterproof boots, because if you're just using your bare feet, it gets a little slippery on the deck there. So I got these waterproof jet ski boots. I got the gloves. I got the life vest. I'm looking good, right? I'm looking the part. And I had some special goggles that were made to keep the spray out of your face. But when I put the life vest on, I put it on a little loose, right? Because I wanted to be able to maneuver. I thought that was a good strategy. I found out later it was not a good strategy because when I took that turn and I went flying and the boat went the other way, the engine did get cut, thankfully, right? That's what's supposed to happen. But by the time I came to my senses and coughed up the water that I had swallowed, the boat was about 20 feet away from where I was. No big deal. I know how to swim. I'm going to swim over there and get on the boat. So clunk, 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 splash, splash, splash. I start going. What I realize is that these gloves and boots that are awesome for jet skiing are not awesome for swimming. And it's really giving me a hard time. And the vest, I can't do like a normal swim motion. I'm kind of out like this, kind of crab paddling, doggy paddling. And it doesn't seem like I'm getting any closer to the jet ski. I'm like splashing and swimming as best I can. And I look up and I'm like, I swear that Sea-Doo looks like it's further away than it just was a minute ago. So I kick it into high gear. Paddle, 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 kick, 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 swim, swim, swim as hard as I can, heading toward the boat, come up for some air, and I look, and yep, it's further away. It's now about 50 feet away. And the wind is blowing, and this boat is a lot more buoyant than I am, and so the wind is blowing it a lot more than it's blowing me. This is where I learned, by the way, that putting your flotation device on loosely was a bad idea, because once I was floating in it, and that's what was keeping me up, I was like up to here. And I could barely keep my mouth above the water to breathe as I'm floating out there. And I'm like, oh no, the wind is blowing this Sea-Doo away. Now, Lake St. Clair is not the largest lake in the world, but it's pretty big. It's like 26 miles long. It's like 24 miles across. 24 miles is how big this body of water is. It's kind of in between the U.S. border and the Canadian border, because Ontario's right up there. And so I'm out here in the middle of nowhere. This was a Tuesday morning. Right. This is back when I was teaching. So I was off on, weekdays in the summer. And so, Lake St. Clair gets really busy on weekends, but on a Tuesday morning, there's nobody out there as far as you can see. That's part of why we went. We thought it'd be great. But now I'm floating out there, and this Sea-Doo is floating and floating and floating away. I'm like, oh my God, this is unbelievable. What am I going to do? So I start to panic. I'm thinking, well, I could probably take off these gloves and boots and swim better, but I got nowhere to put them. I'd have to just let him sink. Oh, my dad's going to be so mad. I can't do that. And then I'm like, if I get this vest off, man, I know I could swim. I know I could get to that jet ski if I could just get this flotation vest off. So I actually seriously considered taking it off, throwing it toward the Sea-Doo, swimming to it, throwing it again, swimming to it. And I almost did that. And I just thought, it's kind of like famous bad last decisions. Like, I could just see the story. How did he drown out there? Oh, he took his vest off so he could swim better. It's like the Darwin Awards, right? Like stupid ways people die. So I decided not to do that. But this thing is now, it's like 100 feet away from me. And I'm like, all right, I got to give it everything I got. I got to catch up to this. I know I can do this. I'm just going to swim as hard as I can for as long as I can until I get, so head down the water, clop, 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 splash, splash, kick, kick, swim, swim for a minute, for 2 minutes. I can hardly breathe. I'm exhausted. Finally, I go as hard and as far as I can, and I look up, and it's further away. It's like 200 feet away. I'm not going to get it. And I float there, down in my vest, barely above the water. I'm just floating, and I watched as that thing got 500 feet away, 1,000 feet away, half a mile away, a mile away. It was getting smaller and smaller and smaller, and then it went up over the horizon, and it was gone. It was gone. I lost my brother's jet ski, and I'm just floating there in the middle of this enormous lake. Nobody around for miles. And I felt like such an idiot. Now, fortunately, I wasn't afraid, right? This wasn't like a life-threatening situation, I didn't think, because it was an inland lake. It was fresh water. There weren't any sharks out there. I was, not going to float out to sea. I was eventually going to either float into the shore somewhere, or somebody's going to drive a boat close enough to me that they see me. And so I'm thinking about it, like, worst case scenario, a couple of days, I spend the night floating in Lake St. Clair. I guess I would starve to death after a week, but I can't be that long. And then I realized, what? My brother has to have reported me missing pretty soon. And so, he's going to call the Coast Guard. So then I started thinking how embarrassing it would be if like a Coast Guard helicopter flies over and sees me down there. Hey, there's an idiot in the waters. Send a boat. And but that's how I was assuming this was going to end. And I'm just floating. And 15 minutes, I'm floating. Half hour, 2 hours, 3 hours. I'm just floating in this lake like a total fool. And every once in a while I'd see a little fishing boat off in the distance. They can't hear me over the motor. They can't see me. No one's looking for idiots in the open water. And so I'm just floating there for hours. And just, what am I going to do? Right? And someone's going to take that jet ski. Now, the next generation of Sea-Doos, the lanyards, had an electronic security key system, right? So only your lanyard would start your Sea-Doo. So almost like a key in a car. But back in those days, the one that I lost, anyone who had any Sea-Doo lanyard, boop, boop, start that thing, drive it away, peel the stickers off with the registration number, put some new numbers on there, you got yourself a free jet ski. And that's clearly what's going to happen here. And, my brother paid $10,000 for that. In fact, he had financed it. He was making monthly payments on it. And so now I've lost, he's going to have to keep paying. Well, he's going to want me to pay for it. I don't have $10,000 to pay for a jet ski. Oh, it's the worst day ever. And so I'm just floating. I'm assuming by now that a search party has been scrambled, that people are looking for me. Maybe they got volunteers that are combing the shoreline. Something must happen. And I'm just floating there. And finally, I see a boat coming kind of toward my general direction. It's kind of a mid-size, pleasure boat, a motorboat. And it's coming. I'm waving. I'm losing my voice, but I'm trying to scream. And the people there saw me. It turns and comes straight toward me. Oh, praise the Lord. I've been rescued. It's like, Tom Hanks when that whale showed up in that boat and he was rescued after being stranded on the island. And so these guys, they pull up. It's two old men. And they're like, well, there he is. And then, come on. Okay. And they start, at this point, I'm exhausted. My arms and legs are totally exhausted. I'm waterlogged. I'm soggy as can be. They're pulling me. I can't even help. These old men pull me up like a flounder onto the deck of the boat. And I'm like, oh my gosh, thank you. We just driving by and you saw me here. And they said, well, actually, we were sitting on the dock about 10 miles from here. And we were fishing. And we saw one of them yellow jet skis just go floating by. And I said to Merle, well, that ain't good. And he said, it sure ain't good. Because some young idiot out here racing around probably fell off and lost their jet ski. And so we fired up the boat and we've been looking for you for about 45 minutes. And I'm like, well, thank you so much. And they started giving me a lecture for, you dang kids and your newfangled machines acting like morons out here. But you're a danger to yourself and everyone. And you know what? They're right. I was like, yep, yes, sir. Yes, sir. You're so right. I'm an idiot. I know it. And, but I'm like, so they're like, well, where do you want us to take you? And I go, well, take me to where the jet ski, where'd you see it? And they go, oh, it's long gone, man. It's probably in Canada by now. We can't take you up into Canadian waters. And I go, why? I got to find it. It's my brother's. So I begged them, please take me in that direction. I appealed to their old man expertise. You guys know so much more about currents and water and wind patterns than I do. You're my only hope. You're the Obi-Wan Kenobi of this whole situation. So they finally agree, and so they drove me to another country in their boat. And we're looking everywhere. We got binoculars. And finally, we spot, hey, jet ski ahoy! There it is, matey. And they head toward it, and sure enough, there it is. The jet ski just floating all by its lonesome. And they dropped me off with another stern warning to be more careful, and you should use the buddy system, and don't be out here by yourself. And yep, you guys are totally right. So I start riding, it takes me, 45 minutes just to get back, to Anchor Bay where my brother is. And I'm like, as I'm pulling up, I'm thinking he's going to have at least the sheriff there or something, right? They're going to have, somebody looking for me. As I pull up, I look, and there's Phil laying on the grass, totally asleep. He'd been asleep the whole time. And so I woke him up. He's like, hey, you're back. He goes, how long has it been? He goes, you've been gone for like 5 hours. I'm like, I know, I've been stranded at sea. You've been sleeping here. And so everything turned out great. No harm done. Didn't really use that much gas even that day because the jet ski spent most of the day floating by itself. But there's a valuable lesson in the story, and that is that there are some things you just shouldn't do by yourself. Jet skiing is one of those things. Right? I'm assuming sports like skydiving, you probably should do with somebody else, right? Using power tools for the first time, starting a business of your own, pursuing big goals and dreams. That if you're trying to do really anything amazing or extraordinary, you probably should get a team and do it together, right? I believe that human beings are wired, we're designed to work together. Life is a team sport. And if you're just off trying to do things on yourself all the time, that's, not only can that be dangerous, but it's really not very fun. And so I made a decision that day never to go riding jet skis ever again all by myself. I'm always going to go with other people. And you know what? The most rewarding, most amazing experiences and accomplishments in my life have been things that I've done with other people, right? Instead of being, if you've ever seen any of Stephen Covey's writing, he talks about the difference between people who are dependent or independent, right? Dependent people, they're totally dependent on their family or their government to take care of them. People that are independent all by themselves honestly really don't accomplish very much. There's a third category called interdependence, right? Where we are dependent on each other. And that's how we're going to fix the problems in this country and in this world. That's how you're going to accomplish amazing things. And that's how you're going to live an epic life, is interdependently connecting with other people and going for it.